Well, back above 24,000 and a very sharp rally from the lows of the trading session. That's what we have at our hands as we start this session of closing trades. We have the Nifty, which is up 350 points from the lows of the day. But the Bank Nifty, that is the one which is rallying fairly hard right now. Almost for a 1,500 plus point of kind of recovery, 1,200 points from the lows of the trading session. And in the green, almost a 2 percentage point gain coming in on the Bank Nifty. And that's the massive rally that we have at our hands. The broader markets too are participating. Of course, there's been rally on both of those mid-cap and small-cap indices as well. Of course, it looks lower than the frontline index, but nonetheless, a very sharpish recovery from the lows of the trading session, and 24,800, which was yesterday's low. We managed to defend that, at least at the moment. The big question, of course, is whether we hold on to this or not. But in terms of the market internals, a lot of sectors actually doing quite well. India VIX has managed to retrace quite a bit. It's the broader markets which are bouncing back today. Metals as a pack is fairly active in the trading session. That index alone is up 2.5–3%. You have the banking names which are powering ahead. Both the PSU as well as the private banks, they are doing the heavy lifting today. So if you look at an HDFC Bank, SBI and Axis for that matter, these are the stocks which are contributing heftily to the market right now. In fact, almost a 100-point rally coming in just from these three banks alone, HDFC, ICICI and Axis at the moment. And if you add SBI, Bajaj Finance to it, there's almost a 150-point rally coming in from some of these banking names alone. In terms of the broader markets, gainers include the likes of Gland Pharma, result reaction and the commentary coming in. MRPL is doing quite well. And then, of course, Mazgaon Dog, the numbers just came an hour ago. And from there, the stock has shot up. On the losing side, Ola continues to be under pressure. In fact, it's gone below the IPO price. So that's the stock to watch out for. 74, 76, I believe, was the higher end of the IPO range. You also have PB Fintech, which has retraced quite a bit, and then Torrent Power is looking weak. But as we talked about, Aisha, the big question is, have we made a bottom? And this rally, is it sustainable or not, is the question to ask, because it's all about US elections.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Considering that that big event is very much still playing out and the verdict is not out yet, and given how neck to neck really that race is turning out to be, maybe the US election verdict is not going to be as smooth and simple and may not really come by as early as well. Could get a little bit prolonged or delayed by a week or so. But having said that, globally as well, it's a lot of calm. Our markets, of course, were a lot more beaten down and thereby this sharpish reaction. But let's welcome on board Kunal Bothra as well as Sunil Subramaniam and find out whether there's at least a near-term bottom in place for us. Kunal, what are the charts reading?
Yeah, the probability is very high that we could probably have made a near-term bottom for the index. Now, what this move does for the markets is not just to bring confidence back for short-term kind of traders, but I think this also indicates that this could now invite a lot of short covering for stocks which have been underperformers and the ones which have been seeing a lot of selling pressure. So what was going through for the markets over the last 4-5 days was a construct where sectors like the autos, FMCGs, IT, etc. These are the ones which are at the brunt of selling pressure, and now you've seen and strength was emerging into the banking names. Now what you're seeing is the banking stocks getting a lot more stronger. You're seeing formidable names like HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, and even the PSU banking lot going through their own share of breakouts on individual basis. And this move could probably now trickle into these other underperforming sectors like auto, FMCG, etc., where you might probably expect that many of these stocks could start to get into a short covering mode. So this indicates that the markets could probably have formed a bottom at this 23,800 mark, and we could be looking at a index slowly and gradually into a bounce mode. But I think more than the index, what matters over here is the kind of short covering rally which we can expect into many of these underperforming sectors.
Right, let's welcome on board Sunil Subramaniam as well and find out what he's making of the market. Sunil, hi, afternoon. Do you think a large part of the selling could well be behind us, or do you sense further EPS cuts coming in post the earnings?
So I think the EPS story could see some more cuts, and I think the next year's forward P will get revised. So, but I don't think there's a chance for market to fall too much more, because you see this month's 1 lakh crore of FII outflow, mutual funds did not entirely participate because there was fresh issuance of IPOs in the Indian market, and they concentrated there. Whereas FIIs, I think only the Hyundai IPO, they made a significant approach. So money was locally used for the fresh issuance, and so they couldn't counter the FII selling. Now that is past us. I think there's a big Swinty IPO, but apart from that, the domestic money is now ready to buy the stocks which the FIIs have been selling and have corrected. So I think that second thing is that domestic fund managers have been smart enough not to buy every time the FIs sell, not immediately buy, but wait for the selling to come through, the prices to come down to more reasonable levels, and now they are stepping in to buy. So I think they've been very smart and staying on the sidelines on the initial FIS selling and then re-entering. Bear in mind that this FIS selling has got partly to do with the Indian earnings downgrade, but that I think now the price is reflecting. But the US uncertainty related selling, because money is flowing back into the US and the Japan, that is not India centric. So I think domestic fund managers are sensing an opportunity, and I think now from now on, even there is further FI selling, domestic fund managers will step in. So I expect a sideways market to come through. Another 10 days, we'll have the full earnings picture, and then a fresh direction will be obtained. But bear in mind that November second half, December first half, FIIs, hedge funds will continue to book profits. So I don't expect a strong rally from the FII side to come in and buy, because whether Trump or Harris wins their economic policies, some amount the market is guessing, but I think you'll get clarity from their public statements when the results is out. So expect a volatile FII period continuing till the end of the year, but domestic fund managers, I think, are now ready to buy that which has not risen. And banking and financial services are top of the pack. In the last 1 year, even the Nifty has gone up 25%, the banking index has gone up only 20%. So clearly, good quality banks are a strong buy from domestic fund managers.
Okay, so the banking space remains the top of the pecking order if you're looking at buying, but the FIIs might not come back in a hurry. It might be sideways for the next couple of months, given the fact that November, December is usually a bit slow for the FII money. But bear in mind, we do have important, federal bank decisions also lined up after the election. So it promises to be a very, very volatile month. And then, of course, back home, we have the Maharashtra elections to deal with. So that is something as well that the market will try to get acclimatized to. But for now, 24,200 at the index level. A very, very, sharp recovery coming in. But Duresh, if I can get a view on the private banking names which are leading the charts right now. Okay, we have Kunal with us in the studio. So Kunal, your view on the private banking names. So Axis Bank, HDFC, SBI, IndusInd, ICICI, all of them are leading the chart. From here on, if I had to ask you the strongest candidates within private banks, what comes to mind?
ICICI Bank and HDFC Bank are the strongest one from the larger cap private sector banking names. From the mid cap end, it's Federal Bank, which has been looking very strong. The stock perched at just about the 200 levels, even though after the stock is showing a muted performance today. So I think these are the kind of names which are looking very strong. Then from the mid-range, not a clear underperformance, but a mid-range stock, Axis Bank, which is just about hovering around the 200-day moving average, for itself around the 1100 to 1170 kind of a range. That's a stock which is also looking attractive in terms of a bottom formation. And the good part about the stock is that it's consolidated for almost the last 3 to 4 weeks at this longer term moving averages. So more or less the stock is trying to take support at these levels. So I think in terms of leadership, in terms of the price uptrend, you're looking at HDFC Bank and ICICI Bank, which are the stronger candidates over here. From the PSU banking lot, even SBI and Bank of Baroda, these are the two names which are looking quite charged up. I think Bank of Baroda today has managed to also cross back above its 200-day moving average, which I believe on a technical basis is a very important and a crucial sign for this stock as well as for the entire sector.
Okay, that's that on banks. But just want to flag off some of the metal counters as well. They've been holding out very well. There is the steel anti-dumping duty, which might be in the works that we told you exclusively about, and that the duty may actually rise from the current 7.5% to 12%, and it seems that the Finance Ministry is looking to discuss the measures to try and protect the industry. The government is also considering tightening quality checks on imported steel. The Steel Ministry has urged the Finance Ministry for action amid rising imports. That said, there's of course JSW Steel, Tata Steel, Hindalco. All these metal counters are holding out very well. There's of course SBI and HDFC Bank along with Axis, which Anisha just flagged off. They're all looking good. There's Maruti, which is holding out very well. There's ICICI Bank, which is looking strong. Tata Motors too has made a comeback. In fact, other than L&T, TCS, M&M, Infosys, ITC, etc., you're not really seeing a whole lot of red per se sectorally. Some of these stocks, which have in any case been very resilient in the in the fall that the market has had, they're the ones which are just lying flat right now. But since we did address the steel import duty, here's the exclusive. We're learning that the government may soon be announcing some safeguard duties on steel imports. Let me take it across to my colleague Prakash Priyadarshi and get in more details on the same.
Yes, we are learning from our sources that the government is likely to announce safeguard duties on steel imports very soon. We are given to understand that the finance ministry is likely to make final decision to protect domestic industry from cheap imports. In fact, the anti-dumping duties or safeguard duties may be increased to 12% from existing 7.5%, and the government is also contemplating tightening quality checks on imported steel, a very significant development coming in. Sources have also informed that the Steel Ministry has made a fresh appeal to the Finance Ministry to take a final call as soon as possible in order to protect the interest of domestic industry. The Steel Ministry has also informed the Ministry of Finance that the steel exports have decreased by 36% in the first 6 months of the current financial year, whereas imports have risen significantly by over 41% in the first 6 months of the current financial year. Therefore, India has become net importer, which is an alarming situation for the domestic industry. Therefore, industry has been demanding government for its urgent intervention and calling for anti-dumping duties and safeguard duties against cheap imports from China and countries like Vietnam. Along with that, the industry has also requested government to impose duty in line with those of USA, European Union and Canada, where these countries have imposed 25% safeguard duties on steel imports to protect their domestic industry. Interestingly, imports have increased sharply despite the fact that there is a surge in the inventory of domestically produced steel. Therefore, the government is likely to make a final decision as soon as possible.
Okay, final decision as soon as possible because the imports have been on the higher side, and yes, this has been an ask by the industry for a long time now. In the meantime, the market continues to do very well for itself. A lot of individual buzzers, right from an HFCL to a Kirloskar Brothers to a Sapphire Foods. All of these stocks are holding very well in the broader markets, while on the losing side, Amara Raja continues to be under pressure. You also have Fortis Healthcare, which is down in the trading session, and ABB India continues to reel under pressure. In fact, as we head into this very short break, here out what the management of ABB had to say on their con call, because they did say that, of course, there are a lot of segments like data center, etc., which is seeing quite a bit of sharpish growth, but the rate of execution might slow down. Sipping into a very short break, but hear out what the ABB management had to say.
Given that our books have been mixed with now the large orders, which have larger gestation period, so the conversion rate that we may have witnessed in past, that may not be the same velocity.
Overall, I think the large orders which are there in the backlog will see an execution which has to match with the overall project timeline. So that's something which we are trying to make sure that we're timing it correctly so that we don't have a lockup and net working capital in terms of receivables out there. And also we're making sure that what is needed for the project is what is delivered so that we have a seamless execution of this particular project.
Market closing trades right here on ET now. The big Q, of course, is going to be the US elections. It's heading towards a photo finish as both the candidates have been fighting it out neck and neck in the race. But irrespective of who comes to power, will it bode well for India and global markets? Nikunj is here with his perspective.
Well, in Hindi like they say that it's kaante ki takkar. In the near term, markets will act and react to the positioning, and it's anyone's guess what the positioning of the market is because the opinion polls are changing, views are changing. Bottom line here is that rather than taking a call based on what will happen today, tomorrow, let's look at the history here. Like they say, history does not repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes. And what is the market history? 1 month post the US election, if you look at the data, and if you actually include the impact of GFC, because GFC makes the data look very different because that was an extraordinary time, an extraordinary sell-off, markets, which is US markets, have given positive returns. Now, the 5-year average, 1 month after the US election, doesn't matter whether it's been Republicans or Democrats, doesn't matter whether Senate has been controlled or Congress has not been controlled by one party. The US markets 1 month after the election, all the 3 major indices, Dow, Nasdaq and S&P, have given you a positive return, which is very important. Second, What will change? Doesn't matter whether it is Republican or Democrats, what will change? I guess corporate taxes. Trump got corporate taxes down. Fiscal deficits are large. If money printing has to continue, it needs to be supported by inflows. So if there, until and unless there is a big gridlock between the Republicans and the Democrats, I think the direction for corporate tax is headed higher. That will change irrespective of who comes. Illegal immigration, something which is very crucial. Both the parties have really stood by it, that it really needs to be controlled. And then what will change essentially is the stance on Fed, energy and geopolitics. These are the other important factors which would be important. What will not change, which is what we want to bring out. And again, we are saying doesn't matter whether it is Kamala Harris or Trump, Republicans or Democrats, the decision making is being done by a White House or whether it's going to be a joint law which is passed by the Senate and the Congress. I guess the anti-China stance is unlikely to get diluted. Very important, which is a big booster for Indian manufacturing. The China plus one or the anti-China strategy, as we call it. Then the fight against inflation, US Fed has said that they want to bring inflation down to 2%. So the US government in a sense is committed to either do supply side reforms or they are likely to do what really could be talked about, demand side reforms. Demand is never a problem in US. I think the supply which could be changed and which could be changed in a very alternative manner because of control in terms of energy and more importantly healthcare cost. Now if Kamala Harris comes to power, which is a Democrats are voted, Phillips Capital feels that neutral in the short term, long term positive, because you know which way the policy for next 4 years would move. Trump, bit of an odd one out because you don't know what the big decision making ultimately would be. Is it right now a lot of bark and less bite? Is it right now posturing ahead of election, nothing may happen? But generally a lot of brokerages are of the view that Trump means more tariff barriers, and if you are exporting to US, whether it is apparel, whether it is IT, whether it is pharma, these sectors in a sense could see restrictions. There is a mention of some of these points already, but that is somewhere you will see market reaction, so to speak. And now the stock list. The stock list of companies which actually could benefit if there is a huge move which already has started, made in America. So which are the companies which essentially are Indian companies and have a presence in US? Hindalco, the Vari Group, Welspun Group, and Bharat Forge. These are 4 companies which directly and indirectly are present in US. Hindalco because of Novelis. Vari set up a manufacturing solar panel unit there. Welspun Corp, they have got a pipe unit there and they are making products there. And Bharat Forge made some acquisitions and is involved in auto manufacturing, auto ancillary manufacturing. So this pack in a sense tomorrow could be interesting because the more made in India narrative you will see, more would be the outperformance in some of these stocks. But it would be an interesting day tomorrow. Next 24 hours, next 48 hours. You may call it Kante ki takkar in Hindi. You may call down to the wires in cricket terminology. And you may call it a cliffhanger when it comes to political terminology.
Call it all that you want, but you can't really call out a definitive outcome, at least so far. But let's welcome on board Alist Newton from Alavan Business Advisory to try and figure out what he's making of the chatter so far. Alistair, hi, good to have you on the show. I know that you're pretty much still fence sitting, but what's the gut instinct telling you? Do you think it's going to be a neck and rear neck photo finish kind of a thing, and will we have to wait longer for a clear verdict?
You know, I very nearly turned down this interview for the very simple reason that I have nothing new to tell your viewers whatsoever. This is a genuine 50-50 election as far as we can tell. Top psephologist Nate Silver published his last forecast based on his model and simulations this morning. And it gave Harris a very, very marginal lead of about 0.01 of a percentage point. You can't take that seriously. It's 50-50, nobody knows. Now, having said that, we could be in for a surprise. The average miss by opinion polls on presidential elections over the last 14 presidential elections has been 2.2 percentage points relative to the actual outcome. A miss by far less than that would give one or other candidate a clear win. The problem is that there is no way of telling before the event, A, how out the opinion polls are, and B, in what direction. So it still leaves us effectively 50-50, and we may not know the outcome until, I don't know, maybe the end of this week, maybe not even then. Keep in mind that one of the most critical swing states, Pennsylvania, in 2020, did not call its result until the Friday after the election. So I don't think investors should necessarily expect that they're going to have a clear picture tomorrow. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, or even the next day, or maybe not even the day after that. And just one more point, and then I'll let you take the questioning back. If the election is called for Harris, Trump will contest it, and there is a possible very narrow path for him to overturn an apparent Harris win.
Okay, perhaps we'll be open to litigation. Don't expect an outcome within the few hours itself. It can take a few more days and really 50-50. But Alistair, the question is right now, what should we even wish for? What do you think is better for emerging markets? Because, of course, you have Mr. Trump talking about putting tariffs on a lot of countries, but then India on a relative basis is expected to do better. What's your take?
Well, I do think we have to take Donald Trump very seriously in his call on tariffs. Now, over the course of the time that Trump has been active in politics, in a high profile active in politics, in other words, since 2015, when he first stood for election as president of the United States of America, he's flip-flopped on a lot of issues. You know, we've heard something from him one day and then exactly the opposite the next day. But if there is one thing about which Donald Trump has been consistent over many, many years, and I'm going back to the 1980s, it's in his public utterances that the rest of the world is ripping America off and America should use tariffs to address its balance of payments deficit. He is likely to be surrounded by individuals this time who are similarly minded. Robert Lighthizer, the USTR in his 2017 to 2020 administration, is a man who is also a deep believer in the efficacy of tariffs for addressing balance of payments deficit. And he is somebody who has the intellectual firepower, as he demonstrated in a very good column in the UK Financial Times last week. He is somebody who has the firepower to turn Trump's vision of tariffs into an intellectually credible argument, that is assuming that you believe in the efficacy of tariffs in the first place, which I have to say I don't. I think it's misguided economics. But Trump and Lighthizer between them, put Peter Navarro to one side, but other key members of the Trump team are going to bring in tariffs. They are not just a bargaining chip. They do deeply believe in them as a means of restoring manufacturing to America. Emerging markets are certainly going to suffer. India, perhaps less than most because of the high dependence on services in your economy, but you're still going to take a hit.
Right. But Alistair, tell me, what are the psephologists right now saying about the swing states?
They're saying pretty much they're all close to 50-50 calls, all 7 of them. Now, I could chuck in Iowa after Ann Selzer's remarkable poll at the weekend, which gave Harris a 3-point lead in Iowa. And let's keep in mind that Ms. Selzer has a remarkable track record of apparent outlier calls which turn out to be right. So things are not straightforward even then. But let's stick to the main 7. There's been some movement over the last week or so. It does look like Harris has made some gains in Georgia and North Carolina in particular. Pennsylvania looks to have swung a little bit towards Trump. It's anybody's guess. It's actually anybody's guess. And you asked me earlier about gut instinct. I'm afraid my gut's gone on strike for this election for the first time ever. It's not telling me anything useful at all.
strike, but maybe by the end of the week it will get that clarity. Thanks, Alistair, for making time and speaking with us. So that's the word coming in, really 50-50 at the moment. No one can really call it. The psephologist and Alistair's own insight on a bit of a strike at the moment. Taking a short break, but don't go anywhere. As far as the US markets are concerned, it's a bit of a green that we are seeing on the screen. Yes, the CBOE VIX is closer to 22. We had seen the 10-year yield spike to the levels of 4.30. But for now, the European markets are in the green. And if you look at the pre-market rates as well, Dow is suggesting an up move of around 50 points. Nasdaq up around 77 points. We'll track that as we move forward. But for now, Indian markets doing quite well in the green. Welcome back. Well, for now, the recovery is sustaining. We are well around the 24,200 mark at the Nifty. The Bank Nifty clearly charged up much more than the frontline index. So, green on the screen at the moment. Let's welcome on board C. Rudra Morti as well as Devang Mehta to talk to us more about the market mood right now. Mr. Rudra Morti, what's your take on the market right now? A solid recovery underway, but A, is it sustainable, and is 24,000 a solid base now?
Looks so with whatever moves we have seen in market as of now. Yes, there has been a very strong support now at around 23,800 zones, and even on Bank Nifty 51,000 is a very strong support. And whatever bounce we are seeing from those strong support zones, yes, we have to see this continuation of the up move for another day or two, and we have to see whether the 24,500 will be taken off or not. So for me, I expect markets to remain in a range for some time, and we should see some amount of time-wise correction. And yes, this range of 23,800 to 24,500 should hold for some time, and we have to see some amount of outperformance, especially in private banks, and also we can see some amount of buying happening in good quality mid and small cap where we have seen enough correction. So yes, markets will be now more range bound, and also some amount of time wise correction will be seen in index. And I am very bullish on private banks, especially HDFC Bank, and even ICICI Bank can do good. PSUs are also looking good, and yes, in that the order will be SBI and then Bank of Baroda. And yes, even metals can do good there. Look at stocks like Hindalco, Tata Steel, Vedanta. So these are all stocks where you have to be very choosy, and then these outperformance will continue for a day or two.
Okay. And Rudra, are you identifying any stocks that you think wherein the selling must have been overdone and you can now buy from a slightly longer term time frame?
See, definitely yes. If someone wants to take a medium to longer time frame from here on, still private banks look very good. Look at HDFC Bank and ICICI Bank. These are my top two picks. And even in PSU, one can look at both SBI as well as Bank of Baroda. And if you want to buy currently, for me, even from metals, Vedanta looks very strong. And after a long consolidation, stock is now giving that up move. Looking at initial target of 485 to 500 on Vedanta, one can have a stop loss of 465 for this long call. And one can also look at buying Voltas. Voltas looks very strong today. Open interest addition is seen on the positive side. Look at targets of 1,735 to 1,750 on Voltas, and one can have a stop loss of 1,675 for this long call.
Yes, Voltas was also one of those candidates which can get MSCI inflows. Of course, we'll get the information on 7th morning. Somit was highlighting the few stocks that are likely to get inflows. 5 additions is what he had said that the street is penciling in. We'll try and get that data up for you. But in the meantime, Devang, there's a lot of expectation from the primary market. It's going to be a week of almost 18,000 crore plus of fundraise happening in India because there are 4 major IPOs lined up. Of course, Swiggy, Afcons and a lot many more. What's your view on these if you have looked at that?
Thanks, Anisha, for having me on the show. I think no particular view on the upcoming IPOs, but honestly, to tell you the truth, the IPO market has been buzzing, and we have seen a lot more capital being raised in the last 1.5 to 2 years. And most of the, if I can just generalize, most of them are trading at a valuation which is sort of higher than what it was kept on the table during that time. I think the supply of quality paper is something which I think excites me. Of course, you know that there was a bubble in that, and the SME sort of IPOs, the very smaller size IPOs, where a lot of money was just trying to be raised because the markets were doing very well. But I think most of the IPOs which are right now coming are either offer for sale The second one is, of course, some of the money is also raised to sort of support the business. But I think particularly about the Swiggy and other companies, these are all great companies. There is a complete duopoly. If I compare Zomato and if I put Zomato and Swiggy together, it's a duopoly right now. So I think most of this, of course, if market remains a little more, I can say, vibrant, the secondary market remains vibrant, this primary markets will find good listings, and most of the quality paper will get absorbed.
It's all about the quality of the paper, and the ones coming do look like of a decent quality. Of course, the valuations are something which have corrected quite meaningfully. Even for Swiggy, we know how it's been downsized, and the price has come in below 400 rupees a piece. So we'll watch out for that one once it opens tomorrow. But in the meantime, you do have names like Ola Electric and PB Fintech coming under pressure. In fact, Ola Electric, Devang, has come below the IPO price now, and quite a bit of slide on that one. Do you have a view on that?
No, we felt that the two-wheelers and the four-wheelers had a bit of a rough patch over the last 3-6 months. I think automobile went through a very good period, and post that there has been a bit of slowdown. And of course, a lot of competition emerging even in the electric side of the vehicles, both in four-wheelers as well as two-wheelers. I think there's probably the next 3 months, it will be a litmus test for a lot of the sellers, because with the festive season, we saw a demand again. That demand was not completely towards the sector, but it was towards some individual companies and individual categories of, maybe in four-wheelers, some SUVs, and in two-wheelers, certain set of bikes. So of course, as I said, I wouldn't like to generalize it, but yes, no view of particular in Ola.
We have disconnected that line with Devang. We'll try and patch that in, but in the meantime, hear out what Horma Sorabji had to say, because Maruti has launched its much-awaited EV at the Milan, event. It is expected to hit the Indian markets come next year. Hear out what his take is on that one.
Well, we've seen the product and we've seen the specs, and I must say I'm very, very impressed with it, impressed with the design. I think what's clear and what sets Maruti apart from a lot of the other local players is this is a global product. 50% of the volume is actually for export markets between Europe and Japan. So I think, and you can really see that even just in the pictures, it is definitely a global product. And, so that's why it's very compelling. It's very promising. We don't know what the price will be. The spec is quite high. So I think Maruti will have a challenge to price it quite low, looking at, the battery sizes. It's got four-wheel drive, the power, all the features that there is in it. So clearly it's catering to a global audience. So it has to have a certain level of spec. But I think it's very, very promising for Maruti. And I think in a way, they may be last to the party, but sometimes that does help, because I think they've been able to iron out a lot of the bugs. And
right. Devang, we snapped that audio line with you, but you were completing your thoughts on what you make of the auto space right now.
Yeah, Aisha, I don't know where I sort of left it.
You can start from the top.
Okay, so I think, as I said, I wouldn't like to generalize auto space as such, because we have seen a lot of divergence among the individual companies when you see the festive season sales which flashed on the 1st of November this time. And yes, Navratra as well as Diwali almost fell in the same month. So I think now the monitorable is that whether the November sales and December also stay afloat. I think there are some bit of headwinds which are emerging for the sector, and there is some bit of slowdown when you listen about the inventory build-up and inventory pile-up with the dealers as well as the companies. So the sense one gets is one needs to be very choosy and picky. As I said, it will not be generally just thematic now. You have to just pick and choose. So for example, Maruti, after a large correction, which is seen from 13,000, 14,000 or to 11,000, should look attractive if someone has a 1.5 2 year type of horizon.
Okay, point taken. So that's the view coming in on some of the auto names. At the moment, we're getting some commentary from Grasim Industries that they're saying that they're not looking at any such acquisition. Remember, there were reports doing around that perhaps AkzoNobel is something that they're looking at acquiring, but seems like there's a clarification that it's coming from the management. For now, the stock is up around 2.3%. The other one which is seeing a bit of a breakout is Vedanta, of course, from the metals pack. Just watching out for that one as well closely. That one too is in focus, up around 2.5%. Kunal, what's your top bet within the metals basket? If at all you're looking at buying any of these names?
JSW Steel is the top one in terms of the price performance. The way the stock has moved up today, even after the initial bout of rally and then the follow-through up move where you saw many of the metal stocks moving up higher, the stock inching up by I think a margin of 4.5 to 5% so far. I think it's one of the strongest name, even in the way the stock had gone through a correction. So there was the point where many of these metal counters had corrected by a margin of 20-25% in the last 1 to 1.5 odd month. I think JSW Steel was one of the few ones which corrected just by a margin of less than 10%, and now the stock is making a comeback to that 1000 plus mark, which I believe is a very decisive breakout for JSW Steel. Followed by this, I would believe that there could be a bout of short covering which could come back into the likes of Hindalco as well as Jindal Steel. I think both of these stocks are also the more attractive ones in terms of a breakout. From the non-FNO stocks and the commodity themes as such, I think Hindustan Copper, Hindustan Zinc, and even the likes of NMDC, these are the other names which could look very attractive from current levels.
Okay, some metal counters which are looking attractive to trade right now. Just going to refresh my screen and figure out what's holding up in the broader markets. Of course, it's metal counters. So everything from a JSW to SAIL, which are all looking good. There's Jubilant FoodWorks, quite surprisingly. That's made a dash of about almost 4%. And then Manappuram as well, which has seen a bounce of about almost 4% coming in. Can't say the same about an AU Small, and Alchem Labs, Berger Paints, or for that matter, JK Cement. But some of these names are looking quite good. In fact, there's also NMDC, Oberoi Realty, there's Hindustan Copper, Bharat Forge, which has shot up quite smartly, Chola Finance, which is also looking very good. There's an IGL, Coromandel International. All of these names are holding out very smartly. Devang, what is it that you are recommending buying, if at all, in this current market?
I think, yes, what we saw is that a meaningful correction has come after a long time. Every month you used to correct 3 to 5%, and this time at the index level, the large caps have corrected by 9%, and mid cap, small cap again by that same number. But most importantly, the stocks have corrected big time. A lot of businesses have corrected 10, 15, 20, 25%. It's not that you need to buy companies which have corrected 25%, but to specify identifying a couple of themes in capital goods and consumption, capex and consumption oriented themes. Of course, we've been saying that the banks, again, there has been a lot of divergence amongst the numbers, be it private, be it PSUs. But real money now lies still in companies which are capex oriented companies, like capital goods companies where sort of even power automation. I used to talk about Hitachi Energy companies like PT Engineering companies like Ingersoll Rand. I've been talking on your channel since last 1.5 to 2 years on all these companies. We again see that after a smaller correction, even in this type of companies, this looks extremely attractive. All these companies, not only on the ROE front, but also on the order book front, on the execution front, on the margin front, are doing extremely well. So I think this type of capital oriented companies, as well as certain consumption oriented companies, retail, a bit of correction. Some of the hotel businesses have also seen some correction. I think a basket of capex and consumption, if somebody has a 1.5 to 2 year horizon, should serve extremely well.
Okay, point taken, but we have you on a bit of a scratchy line here, Mang. We'll let you go. Thanks so much for making time and speaking with us today. We have been talking about the big event which is lined up for the markets, which is of course the US election. But don't forget, back home as well, you have elections in Maharashtra come November 20th. And the big question everyone is asking is not who will win, but whether exchanges will declare holiday or not. We'll get to know that later. But hear out what the latest commentary is coming in from both the leaders of the leading parties in the state, Mr. Aditya Thackeray, as well as Mr. Devendra Fadnavis, talking about their poll promises.
और जहां तक मुख्यमंत्री का सवाल है, हम लोगों ने यह तय किया है कि मुख्यमंत्री का फैसला ये चुनाव के बाद किया जाएगा। हमारे एकनाथ शिंदे जी उनके पार्टी के राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष है, अजित पवार जी उनकी पार्टी के राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष है, तो ये दोनों राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष हमारे राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष जी के साथ, हमारे पार्लियामेंट्री बोर्ड के साथ बैठकर फैसला करेंगे। जो फैसला होगा वो मुख्यमंत्री होगा।
This is not a personal battle. This is not a battle for personal ambitions. This is not because I want to post or my father wants to post. At the age I am at, I could have chosen to sort of step away from politics and do something at a different level, looking at the dirty politics that is going on around. And I chose to stick on because frankly I believe that somewhere we need to get into this muck and clear it out.
लोगों को हमारी भूमिका क्या है ये पता है, इसलिए धूल झोंकने का वगैरह कोई सवाल ही पैदा नहीं होता। जनता हमारी भूमिका को जानती है और मेरा पूरा विश्वास है कि जनता हमको वोट करेंगी। हमारी सरकार वापस चुन कर आएगी.
Wish well for every candidate. Frankly, again, like I said, this is not about our family. This is about the state. And I think, I truly believe that this is about which side you're on. If you're with the MVA, you are with Maharashtra and with the benefit of Maharashtra, with the larger interest of Maharashtra. If you even have a tacit support to the
Right, okay, that's the contenders in the Maharashtra elections this time. In the meantime, for the markets, we're looking quite okay. But Kunal, how sustainable does the rebound look?
Yeah, so I think it looks quite okay because the first move of the market is go with the stronger sectors. Whenever the first move or a bounce is led by stronger sectors, for in this case, the banking index, it's generally a sign that the move is more formidable. The second, part of the move which happens, is generally short covering wave, which happens across many of the underperforming sectors. Now, there are a few cases, for example, the real estate index, that was one of the pockets where there was a very sharp selling across the spree, whether it's the likes of Godrej Properties and then Oberoi Realties, DLF, for example. So I think many of these stocks could be in line now to get back into a short covering mode from here on. Then you're seeing the metal stocks making a comeback. This is again a sign that potentially the risk appetite could probably come back from the markets, and again a wave of short covering which could be at play. What matters over here now in terms of the technical stance for the indices is to break past about the 24,250-300 hurdle, because this could be a midpoint hurdle for the index in the previous range when we were consolidating. So if we manage to break past about these levels, then we can be a lot more confident that the lows which the index made yesterday and today, 23,800 approximately, that could be a short-term bottom in place.
Okay, short-term bottom in place for now. It's JSW Steel which is leading the chart with that 5% gain at the index. Tata Steel doing quite well. Bajaj Auto is the other one which is up 3.6%. In fact, we did speak with the management earlier in the day, hear out what they had to say, because they were talking about a bit of a pickup when it comes to the export markets like Nigeria. Hear out what their take is on the festive demand and the way forward.
More and more one is finding that the last few days, particularly around Diwali and Diwali regions, can swing it. And that is exactly what has happened. I think that there will be a natural dip in second half of November and December, which is, structurally there in December because people generally wait for the new model year. And post Diwali, there is a natural dip. And we should start picking things up from January onwards.
We will find out more during the festive season, because the wedding season, so because that's the biggest sale driver for us coming forward. So we should find out in the next couple of months exactly how much the whole rural sector has recovered.
Actually, the festive season has done nothing specific to the FMCG as a whole. There are parts of FMCG which tend to take a little bit of a high during festive season. For example, chocolates tend to have a seasonal high. To some extent, edible oils. But if you leave that out, FMCG tends to be more or less flattish. I mean, it doesn't see a spike at all during festive season. And this year has been no different in that sense.
Okay, so that's a festive mood check for you as far as the auto and the rest of the sectors are concerned. But for now, let's take the BDSE trades. Mr. Rudra Morti, what's your take on the BDSE trades? Looks like it's going to be more buys than sell at the moment.
Yeah, for me, HDFC Bank is a stock one can definitely carry for BTST. So I buy on HDFC Bank looking at target of 1,775 with a stop loss of 1,745, and also a buy on SBI for a BTST looking at targets of 865 with a stop loss of 845.
So HDFC Bank and SBI are the top bets. I'm hoping, Kunal, you don't have similar names, at least not HDFC Bank.
Yeah, not HDFC Bank, not ICICI Bank, but SBI is something which I would pick at current levels. The stock completing a breakout just around the 840, 850 mark. So would look out for targets in the range of 880, and stop loss could be kept at 830 mark. And Oberoi Realty is the other stock which I would be very bullish on. The stock is looking quite classical in terms of a chart pattern where there's been consolidation for the stock around the 1990 levels. So would look out for a breakout. 2060 as an immediate target. Stop loss at 1950.
Kunal, what's your take on Gland Pharma? That stock has been doing fairly well in the trading session, and MRPL is the other one, up 13%. And in fact, Gland Pharma was up 12% in an otherwise very weak market as well.
Yeah, but this comes after almost 12 weeks of consistent selling for Gland Pharma. So this stock almost was in the month of August was around 2,200 levels, was beaten down to 1,600, 1,650 mark. Even for MRPL, I think, I was looking at the charts over the last couple of days, and the indicators were hugely oversold, and that was one of the major reasons why, because the stock was had fallen by almost a margin of 25% in the last 1.5 to 2 months. Now, when you see such kind of a sharp selling, there's going to be a point where the indicators will be oversold, the stock will get back into a bounce, will go into a mean reversion phase. But then what matters over here is that these stocks, they generally lack follow-through price action. So a change of trend is what we anticipate when we see at least 2-3 days of successive price movement. May not be of the same intensity, but at least the volume pickup which happens on such kind of days, they generally go missing over the next couple of days for these names. So that's one of the major reasons why I would believe that maybe the trend may not sustain for these stocks unless we see the volumes moving up higher and the price action slowly and gradually inching up higher for both of these names. So as of now, would avoid these names, but would keep them under watch over the next couple of trading sessions.
Yeah, Gland Pharma, of course, is put up very smartly in today's trading session, even though the numbers weren't all that impressive, but a 13% spike up on the stock, closing in at the day's highs. The market, of course, is pegging a lot more as to how the management is actually going to bring a turnaround, perhaps. But we let all of our experts go on that note. Thanks, as always, for taking the time out. Let me hand it over to Ashesha then for the closing trades.
Well, yes, after the slide that we saw yesterday, today turned out to be a good day for the Indian markets. Nifty ending above that 24,200 odd mark. 205 points higher on the Nifty. It was a good day for banking and financial services stocks as well. Bank Nifty ending nearly 952,000 points higher at that 52,150 odd mark. It was clearly metals all the way. We had JSW Steel, Tata Steel, SAIL, all of these stocks ending nearly 3 to 5 odd %. Nifty Metal Index up nearly 2.5%. JSW Steel, SAIL was up 4%. Tata Steel, ahead of its numbers, was also up nearly 4 odd %. Remember, we had that ET Now exclusive which said that perhaps anti-dumping duty on steel could be increased from 7.5% to 12%, and that also aided moves for all of these steel stocks. Apart from this, let's also talk about the losers then. On the Nifty index, we had Coal India, which was down 2%, biggest loser on the index. Trent and Adani Ports, some of the other losers. Both these stocks also ended nearly 1.5% lower. Ola Electric, meanwhile, falling below that IPO price, 4% equity, which was locked in, opened today. And on the back of that, we saw some bit of selling pressure come in on this counter. Ola Electric ending 8.5% lower today, below that 75 mark. We had sugar stocks in focus today. Balrampur Chini, it did recover from the lowest point of the day after reports which suggested that perhaps minimum selling price on sugar could be increased. Balrampur Chini, it did end 0.5% lower but recovered from the lowest point of the day. Realty index, remember, realty stocks were under pressure yesterday and that continued in today's trading session. Nifty Realty Index, biggest sectoral loser, it of course ended the day 0.5% lower, but we had Macrotech Developers, Godrej Property and Sobha, all of those stocks in focus today. Oberoi Realty ending the day 4% higher. Apart from that, we had an ET Now exclusive on Akzo Nobel and Grasim. Akzo Nobel was also gaining on the back of that. A couple of earnings reactions then. Mazgaon Dock, it ended the day 5% higher. Very strong set of numbers. ABB India results impact over here, ending the day 4% lower. Amara Raja Batteries on the back of results and brokerage reports. This stock also ended the day with a cut of nearly 4 odd %. But all in all, turned out to be a good day. We did see that strong recovery come in from the lowest point of the day. Nifty ending near that 24,200 mark. But you don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to ET Now.